All right, welcome everybody to the week 4 go to training. I think that most people are probably here by now. It's 2 o'clock, so I'm gonna get started. So, we've kind of been talking week 4, it deals with, a lot of our, motivation. So what drives us? A lot of that is, it can be pretty emotional. And we start off kind of just jumping right into it with the anatomy of an emotion. So I think that everyone at some point has probably been through a situation like this. Just kind of go through. So something happens in your life, what they call the activating event. Someone does something, something happens to you. Maybe it's an exchange that you had something to do with. Maybe it's not. It could just be things that happen in the world. What we as humans tend to do is develop beliefs about that. We like there to be a narrative. We like it to be a story. And we get an idea in our head, which we tend to believe. So, a lot of times, this can happen with, people who, somebody does something, somebody else takes it personally, the first person in that situation may have just said, hey, I was going about my life and, I accidentally stepped on your shoe, and they don't think about it again because it was just an honest mistake for them. But, the other person could be sitting there and thinking, oh, that person, they stepped on my shoe to be disrespectful because they don't like me. Has anyone ever been in a situation where maybe they did something without thinking and upset someone else, or vice versa? Maybe somebody did something and you had a story about it, whether or not that story was true. Has anyone ever been in a situation like that? Anybody? Okay. Well, that's a lot of where a lot of people, kind of leave it. We end up with consequences a lot of times. Something's happened, we've developed a belief system about it, and then we react to its consequence. Sometimes maybe we're just upset with somebody. I don't like that person anymore because they did something to me, or whatever the case may be. Maybe we go and we say something to them. But one way or the other, that it kind of, hopefully we don't do anything, mean to the person or whatever. But sometimes that's kind of how it goes. We're upset, we get our feelings hurt, so we kind of move on. Where we get the choice and the change is in the so disputation. So we can dispute the idea that we have. That's where we get to change the narrative. So we may have it in our heads that, if someone did something to us and, they did it and they're mad at us and they're mean and we don't like them. Here's where we get to flip that, and we get to say, hey, you know what? Maybe this person's just having, a bad day. Maybe they, weren't paying attention where they were walking. They accidentally stepped on our foot. Something like that. We get to essentially dispute the ideas that maybe we've developed on our own. I've definitely had to do that before. I've had, maybe one of my friends or somebody did something that hurt my feelings. And I had to say, hey, you know what? I don't think that was something that he did on purpose. Yeah, so Paula says, my brother and her all the time. Yeah, definitely. With siblings, it's really easy. Something happens, we get mad. And if we want to continue having, a relationship or friendship, whatever it is with that person, a lot of times it's just easier, to say, hey, you know what? I can't believe that, this person is really just out to get me. Occasionally there might be people who are just jerks in the world and they're out to get you. But, for the most part, hopefully, people aren't trying to get you in the world. So the disputation is where we get a chance to stop and challenge it and say, hey, you know what, is this really, what's going on? So we get to change the narrative. No, I don't quite mean bite your tongue. I mean, you get to actually change the narrative. So, Albert, has anyone ever done something and you thought, oh, that person, they did something, and they're just, really trying to ruin my life, or maybe sometimes feel, I definitely had teachers and I was like, that teacher's out to get me. The reality of the situation was that they weren't out to get me. I, in a lot of cases, probably wasn't doing my work or wasn't, holding up my end of the bargain. Can everybody else hear? Sorry, it looks like it's an issue. Some people can't hear. Okay, it looks like more people can hear than can't. I'd say turn up your volume if you're not able to. Okay, Albert, if you don't take things personally, then that's great. A lot of times people do. Sometimes, Paula says sometimes agree to disagree. Sure. So I think that if you can go through life and not take things personally, fantastic. I know that I've definitely had situations where I said, I think I made a story up for one reason or another in my head, and I created a narrative around usually, something about hurt feelings. So I've gotten my feelings hurt, or someone's done something and I haven't been happy with it. In any case, if I'm able to stop that thought process and say, hey, realistically, like, is it that realistic that this person is just, out to get me? Whatever the case may be. Chances are, usually I'm not that important to these people, and they're not out to get me. What happens when we're able to, successfully dispute kind of, maybe a thought process that's not going well for us or not bringing us to a good place, we get energized. We get to view the world in a slightly more positive way. We can say, hey, you know what? This person who stepped on my shoe, maybe they were just in a hurry and I wasn't paying attention, and maybe I may have even had a part to play in it. But that's essentially the anatomy of emotion with that A, B, C, D, E. So, one else we cover is faulty thinking. So I think that a lot of times the anatomy of emotion leads us into or it can lead us to that if we take the thought process I was talking about, we can fall into a label. Someone at some point, I'm sure, has felt that they were labeled at one point or another. Can anyone think of maybe a label that they've felt they had maybe in school before they came out here, or maybe when you were in high school? Can anyone think of anything like that? Palace says, people thought you were a nerd. Oh, nerd again. Okay, yeah, no, definitely. Filthy casual. I'm not quite sure I understand what filthy casual is. Would you mind explaining that, Michael? Okay. Let me see. Yeah, would you mind raising your hand so I can find you in the group? Ah, there we go. Hey, are you there?
Hi.
Yeah, would you mind explaining that?
Sure. So sometimes in the gaming community, they like to ostracize people who don't play video games in the manner that they do. So they're considered casuals as opposed to a hardcore. And, they like to, I guess, not include the casual audiences for gaming related.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So right, they said maybe, hey, this guy's not a hardcore gamer or not into it, or whatever the case may be.
Right, exactly.
Okay, yeah, definitely, definitely. Sure, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So right, sure. So there's a lot of different labels. It happens to be with people who listen to rock. Okay, yeah, sure. So a lot of times people get strawberry rocker. Okay, so I get that. You're talking about like people think that you're not as committed to whatever thing that someone else may be. So when you kind of run around with a group of people and they're very very committed or interested in one topic or thing, um, great. It's like an inner circle. Totally. So yeah. So I think that's a lot of times right. Labels get formed that way. Um, Eventually, I think a lot of times people end up believing a label about themselves. Maybe some of these not so much with the casual gamer or other things, but right, people might well, they might think it means something bad, and they may run with it. It could take it has taken a lot of people historically to kind of bad mental places. Maybe people believe, oh, I'm not likable, I don't have friends, etc. And it's kind of one of those things that it's faulty thinking. I think everyone at some point is able to kind of be social and get out there, and even if it's at varying levels. The idea is right, is that labels kind of fall under this faulty thinking category. um, and right, they're really not good for people in general. So I would try and avoid them to the best of your ability. So multitasking. There is a quick video in the materials section. If everyone would just jump over there, I'm going to play a quick video on multitasking. So pay attention to it. I want to know what you guys think, and I'll be back in just a couple minutes after the video. All right. So coming back from that, does anyone have any thoughts that they wanted to share on that? Hands or in the text box, whatever makes people happy. Anyone have any thoughts on multitasking? I know for me, I really, really, really like the feeling of getting something completed. So I like to start a task and kind of work my way through it to the best of my ability. Sometimes I take breaks. Sometimes I take a break and I go work on something else for a while. But I have a hard time. Right, if I try to keep too many things going. Um, Alessandro says, "Does that mean it can't binge watch a series?" No, you could binge watch a series. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how that relates. Um, Obviously, I have to teach myself to finish one thing at a time. Yeah. So definitely. Oh, a bunch of people all just jumped in at once. Right. So it's difficult, right, to focus on many things at the same time. Um, a lot of it revolves around muscle memory, like talking to someone while cleaning something, listening to the radio. Sure, no texting and driving. Definitely that one's dangerous. Um, oh, taking too much info in with binge watching a series. I'm sorry. So I think that it's different. I think it's more about doing multiple tasks at the same time. So Victor says, my girlfriend always gets mad because when I write a text while she asks a question, I can't answer anything or even move your head to indicate. Right, yeah, no, definitely. Because your thoughts are in your text or whatever you're doing. And you can't really give your attention to two places at once. Um, Albert says he's listening and posting on the platform. Sure, I would imagine that it's probably it's not that it can't be done. It's just that like what you're getting out of either of the experiences is really not going to be the same as if you were to give your full attention to one or the other. I guess that's really what I'm getting at. I know if my wife's talking to me, and I'm also trying to respond to an email, I'm gonna probably give most of my attention to the email response, and then I'll come back to my wife and say, "Oh, what was that you were saying?" And then I might go have to proofread the email again just to make sure that I actually said what I thought I was going to say. Where it's much easier to just stop, in my situation, listen to what my wife has to say, and then go back and finish writing my email. You can't, right? Which says you just can't do things as efficiently. Absolutely not. You're not as efficient. So it might seem like you're getting more done because you have more inputs and hopefully more outputs, but it's for me, I'm not successful at it. My wife has this amazing ability to type without looking at the keys and carry on a completely different conversation. She can sit and chat with me while she's typing something completely unrelated. Blows my mind. I don't get how she does it. I realize that some people have that skill. I don't. Unless you really are amazing at that, I wouldn't recommend trying to do both things. I think I get a lot more out of activities and everything when I do one at a time. I know I have a hard time if I'm trying to read something and I have the TV on. The TV's on in the background. A lot of times I'll end up pausing whatever I'm watching while I sit and I read something because I want to actually get knowledge and information out of what I'm reading and not if I'm just skimming over it, that's fine. But right, I definitely get a lot more out of things when I give them my full attention. Um, so right, as far as multitasking, we defined as doing multiple things at the same time. And right, what we think happens is we think we're getting a lot done. The reality of it, we're really switching our attention back and forth. One thing kind of always has more attention than the other, but we're going back and forth. And right, the bottlenecking is kind of the situation that I run into. I end up sitting and saying, hey, I'm not really getting very far on either one of these tasks, and I'm trying to do both of them, but it's not really working out for me. It ends up being a situation where we really aren't especially if it's something we're studying for, we don't end up very proficient in either one of the things. So I think it's definitely worthwhile to to take the time to just do one thing at a time. If you need to, work on something for 20 minutes at a time, give it a full 20 minutes and then switch tasks. If you absolutely have two things and you can't give yourself fully to one, try 20-minute increments, switching back and forth. It could be pretty helpful. So that's what I would do. So mindfulness. There's another quick video in the materials section labeled as mindfulness. Before we get into that, Victor says he's learned that women's brains are wired to be able to do more stuff at the same time, kind of multitasking, than men. Is there any truth to that? I don't know that I could make a broad, sweeping generalization. I'm not familiar if there is. Like, I don't have like a paper to refer back to say this is true or not. Santiago, and you can do the things better when you give your full attention. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so mindfulness. Back into materials, we have another short video. Let's watch that, and I'll come back after we're done with the mindfulness video. Alrighty, welcome back from that. So yeah, I think that there's definitely something to be said about mindfulness. Again, I think kind of what I was talking about before, where when we get when something happens to us and we sometimes get an idea about this person cut me off in traffic. I feel like that's one of the times when people get the most angry. I know for me, I wish I didn't get frustrated in traffic, but I do. somebody will, well, right, they'll cut me off or they won't go at the light. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, what's this person doing? And and right, I get annoyed with them, and I'm like, well, this person, I pretty much immediately develop a story. I'm like, well, this person's not paying attention, or they're texting and they should be paying attention to the road. Um, but I get ideas and I kind of just run away with them. I think that mindfulness is probably a practice that, it will, if I can stop and I can say, hey, is this really likely to be what's happening in the situation? Is this really something that's going on? And I can sit and right, kind of reassess and check and see, like, oh, maybe I'm getting carried away with this idea. So it's definitely something that's important. So right, it kind of starts with being in the moment. So being aware of your surroundings, knowing what's going on. It would be nice to have a meditation workshop at Full Sail. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know of one that they have, but it wouldn't surprise me to know that there was one. I think that there's something to be said though about right, sitting quietly, taking some time for self-reflection. Sometimes people, can do this in the moment as they're going on. Sometimes people need to take a step back. Sometimes it's better to just kind of have a time set up at the beginning of the day or the end of the day when you can sit quietly and kind of, right, you can reflect. But in the moment, there's something to be said about, kind of appreciating the now. So stopping and taking a breath and saying, hey, I'm okay with the world around me. And sometimes you are, and sometimes you aren't. And if you aren't, it's understandable. I'm sure there have been days when, I'm sitting, if I'm sitting at, my friend's house and or by the lake and it's relaxing, it's real easy to be, in the moment and appreciating the now. Um, I think though that where the practice comes in is, how do I get that same level of, kind of relaxation and well-being feeling or um, how do I achieve that when I'm not at my friend's house at the lake, or when if I'm stuck in traffic, how do I stop and take a minute and say, okay, I'm here in my car and it's whatever's going on, it's not Paul says woosah. Yeah, definitely no. Uh, yeah, exactly. There's something to be said about right stopping and taking a deep breath and kind of be aware of what's going on around you. How am I feeling? What my mood is? Why I'm feeling that way. When I develop some greater awareness, I you know I feel like I'm in a better place. So yeah, I would definitely say it's worth it. It's worth it to maybe do some mindfulness exercises. If you Google mindfulness exercise, there's a million that will come up. But right, I think it's worth working on. I think it's something that, especially as you get further on in your degree programs, when things are more and more stressful, um, right, it's important to kind of think about and be aware of, like what my mood is and what my feelings are and how things are going every day, because no one else is going to stop you and ask you these things. No one's going to say, hey, what's your mood? You look stressed. What are you doing to kind of mitigate those feelings? So it's kind of the best way to advocate for yourself and for your own mental health. So definitely find yourself some nice mindful meditation exercises and go for them. So right, to kind of connect those things, practicing mindfulness it helps. At the end of the day, that's really, kind of all I can say about it. Multitasking is one of those things that if you can avoid it, I would recommend it. If you are dead set on, I'm going to multitask and that's how my life's going to be, I'm not going to stand in your way and tell you not to. I would just say, give it a shot. See how it is when you multitask versus when you don't. When you fully give yourself to a task versus when you split your time and mental energy. Being aware of your emotions and being able to not necessarily regulate them, but being aware of how you're feeling every day, it's a kind of a worthwhile thing. I think a lot of times, we might get worked up about something that maybe, maybe we don't even know why we're getting worked up, but we find ourselves, emotionally charged. Kind of being aware of that is worthwhile. I know that I've, been sitting and running a situation through my head. Yeah, basically becoming one with yourself. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. I've found myself where I'll sit and I'll mull over a situation that maybe happened, or where somebody did something to me, or I'm in a situation I'm mad about, and I'm sitting there, and I end up, kind of fist clutched, and I'm frustrated and worked up, and it's like, wow, I've worked myself into this, situation. Where I get, I'm all mad about a situation over again. It's like, maybe I should, develop some awareness and say, hey, this is a situation that I know kind of, I have a bad feeling about, or I didn't like how that went down. And, processing it and going through it, working through it, but then maybe not dwelling. Count to 10. Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of stuff that we can do to kind of just stop and pause in the moment. It's when we're agitated or upset, just take a minute, pause, step back. For me, a lot of times, that means I might need to not say what I'm thinking. If I have, something unpleasant to say, maybe I should pause for a minute and not say that thing. But the more that we become aware and we, stay in tune with our emotions, what's going on, it becomes a habit. But it definitely takes practice. It's not something that we're born with. It's one of those things that, depending on your industry may, save you from, saying something or doing something that, you may want to say something when you're emotionally charged, but it might not be the thing that is appropriate to say given your work situation. So definitely something that's worth taking some time at and practicing. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, you're a slave of what you say and owner of what you think. Ooh, interesting. I like that. That's pretty good. Slave to what you think and owner of, or slave to what you say and owner of what you think. Interesting. Yeah, so I think the only thing I didn't say in class for this week that's relevant is that for the team discussion, we're on push. That's the I only know it in Spanish. That's fine. You're good, Belle. I appreciate it. So this week for the team research assignment, we're going to be talking about push. What kind of pushed us out of our category. We did work, play, fit, and now we're on push. So I'll be more than happy to share ideas about that tomorrow in class. If anyone wants to go into that more elaborately. But basically, I want to know kind of what everyone's doing to expand their horizons. Whatever expanding your horizons kind of means and is for you, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm not going to tell you how or what necessarily, but I want to know kind of what you're doing to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. So that is going to be what, and everyone's going to post, and everyone will respond to two of their peers. So that's going to be the assignment. So just to float that one out there. I'll talk about it more tomorrow if anyone has more questions or thinks of anything. But if there are no more questions, you're all free to go. So a short session. I know it's last week, but thanks everybody for being here. I appreciated it. Yeah, feel free to email me about last week's investment plan. I'd be happy to hear that. You're most welcome.